All right, picture this. You're a pathetic wage slave working your daily 9 to 5. It's around noon, so you go pop in your nuggies to the tactical nuke for a few minutes, take them out, load up the old YouTube. That's me this past week. And what do I see? Advocacy for pistol lasers, visible lasers, in 2025. Let's get into it. Hey guys, this is Brass Lab. Today we're going to be talking about a video, or actually two videos that I saw from a channel called SPN Firearms this past week. I thought they were pretty cringeworthy. I'd seen this guy's content in the past. I think he's a fairly popular YouTuber. Some of his content I actually like, so this isn't an attack on him or his channel. This will be something of a reaction video, as well as me demonstrating arguments as to why these are bad ideas that he's espousing, and why you should not use visible lasers on your pistol for self-defense.
What's up guys, SPN Firearms here. Just remember, marketing is a heck of a drug. It can convince anybody of anything. It can convince you to buy things you would never need. It can convince you to buy things for your carry gun that you'll never use. It can convince you to buy a brand new gun a month later after you just bought a brand new gun because you think you need it, not just because you want it. Marketing is crazy.
So far, kind of speaking facts though, right? That's legit. That's so legit about marketing. A lot of times we think we need an upgrade even though we really don't. You know, sometimes we kind of know that we don't need the upgrade and we want an excuse to try something new though. But he's not wrong. For a lot of people, it's kind of hitting those same dopamine receptors as gambling and other sorts of things that give you a rush. Some people that's gonna be a problem. Other people it's just, you know, part of having fun, part of enjoying the free market. Let's continue.
And that's what you see. Everywhere you go is marketing. Billboards. Shoot, part of this video you could consider marketing, right? But it's not, because I'm not getting anything out of it. I paid my own money for these products, but let's talk about it for a second. Red dots. They came out of nowhere, took the market by storm, for concealed carry. Do I carry them? Of course. Do I carry them on most of my guns? No, definitely not. Most of my guns are just simple.
So they didn't exactly come out of nowhere. I mean, pistol red dots first caught on with the competition community because it gave them an edge for competition shooting where time matters, splits matter. And then different law enforcement units and militaries saw the effectiveness in competition scenarios and gave red dots a shot in a military context or law enforcement context, like the Trijicon RMR, and found that it was pretty damn good for what it is. I mean, it gives you a red dot on your pistol. Everything that gives you an advantage with a red dot on a rifle, it put on your pistol. I wouldn't exactly say they came out of nowhere. Also, they've been around for a long time now. They didn't really start to catch on until the mid-2010s and haven't really become truly mainstream until the 2020s.
Are just simple night sights, some even just stock sights. But what's crazy is they make you think that a red dot or a flashlight makes sense on your carry gun. Now a flashlight, if it did what this does, that makes sense.
What did he say?
If a red dot on your carry gun is ever used, that means you were at distance. That means you had time. When somebody runs up on you, you don't have time to get your handgun all the way up into your line of vision and look through your red dot and say, okay, I got the shot. No, it's point shooting. Shooting from your hip.
Hipfire Bitch!
Which you can't see through the sight, and all the way up. Still can't see it until you start extending, right? Well, this right here is a laser. People are gonna say outdated, lame, old, which this is an older release.
You know, he's not wrong that a lot of self-defense situations are at point shooting distances, but the reality is we're talking like 2 or 3 yards max. And realistically speaking, is it gonna be any faster looking for a laser in that close of a situation as opposed to just point shooting, just going off point aiming? But it's important to bear in mind that there's something of a CCTV footage confirmation bias going on, where there's a lot more footage from urban and indoor environments, lending itself to more confined spaces where point shooting might be your only option. There can be plenty of self-defense situations outside those particular environments where aiming down your sights is more likely, it's just not on film. In a suburban or rural setting, at your house, in a field, in a parking lot, it's not that that data doesn't matter and isn't important to gather from these kind of footage and to learn what we can, but it's also important to remember that it's not really indicative of every case of defensive gun use in this country, where some studies show that there's over 1 million cases of defensive gun use every single year in the United States. And we're really only able to see those cases that are taking place inside the city or inside indoor environments.
But guess what? It's faster than your red dot. It makes more sense than your red dot for everyday carry. And if they made flashlights like this, then I would start carrying them more often. That would make sense. But when you are in the middle of a self-defense encounter and you say, hold on, let me press the button. No, or let me draw, press the button. That makes sense if you do that. But most people are not training. Every time they draw, they press the button and turn on their flashlight. Chances are, I watch so many nighttime carry defense setups, and they never turn on their light until things calm down or until they get cover or whatever the case may be. That makes sense, right? But even in most places, they're lit up. They're street lights, and if you're ever going to walk with your kids late at night, you can still make out their faces and stuff. Your eyes adjust when you're in the dark. So typically speaking, I never carry with a light unless it's late out at night and I just grab my Smith & Wesson with the light on. But check this out.
That's just not really true. I mean, your eyes can adjust to different lighted scenarios, yes. And to a certain degree, they can adjust to low light conditions. But you're not being able to see clearly in a self-defense situation in pitch black darkness. That's just not happening, buddy. That being said, it is true. You're probably not activating a light in a lot of these very bang, quick self-defense situations. I will go over why lights are still useful on self-defense carry guns. So it's not just about activating the light when you're actually shooting the immediate threat to your life. It's about having the option of turning on the light in any context you might need it. Let's talk about a very realistic scenario for self-defense, which is like a carjacking situation at nighttime. So you're going up to your car, about to get in your car, somebody runs up on you, you draw your weapon, you don't activate the light because there's not enough time, but you know where they're at, so you take the shots. Bang, bang. All right, now they're on the ground. So a lot of people tell you don't need a weapon light because you can just use the flashlight on your cell phone. Well, here's the thing. The first thing you should be doing after a self-defense situation, especially where shots are fired, is calling 911. The dispatcher is going to keep you on that call until police arrive. Now, there's still a possibility that this person who ran up on you, tried to carjack you, could be armed. All right, and even after you've taken shots on them, they could still be moving, they could still be going for a weapon. What is an ideal use of a weapon light while you are on the phone with the dispatcher waiting for the police to arrive? You can have your weapon with the light now activated, trained on the perpetrator, so that you have security, you understand, and are able to monitor for if they go for a weapon and what their condition is that you can report to the dispatcher. That's not exactly a glamorous use case, but it's probably the most realistic, and it's a very important reason to have a weapon light on your everyday carry. So he's rattled off two reasons or two scenarios in which he believes that lasers are superior to red dots or even just iron sights, and that is being able to point shoot from the hip and this idea that it's faster. If the threat to your life is truly within point shooting distance, we're talking about 2 or 3 yards, I mean, you should be able to effectively point shoot at those distances without a laser. And if they're any farther than that, it really does not take that much time to raise your pistol, aim down the sights, and acquire the target. So anything really outside of 5 yards, you should be able to draw your pistol and actually use the sights.
The Armor Laser TR6. Now there are downsides to this too, which we'll touch on. It always is zeroed from the factory. This came zeroed in on the dot, perfect. Obviously you can still change it. You can still, get it if it's a little bit off or wherever you want it. Let's say you shoot a little left, you can offset it, whatever the case may be. But the second you grab your carry gun, that laser's on. Second you grab it. Now how does that work? Armor Laser uses this sort of technology. It's a little pad that the second your finger touches it, boom. So if you grab onto your handgun, anywhere within that region on that trigger guard, it is going to turn on. And it's zeroed in, and it's parallax free, just like a red dot. And you do.
By the way, there are some weapon-mounted flashlights that use those pressure pads to activate whenever you grip the gun firmly. So it's not just lasers that have that feature as an option.
You do not have to raise it to the point where you can see through it. You can do it one-handed, you can do it sideways, you can literally, any way you put it, you can see where your round's going. At night, you do not have to look through it. So the fact that they promote red dots like crazy when this is faster for self-defense is insane. I get why they do it. Look at this, cost me what, 86 bucks? 86 bucks. and it came with like 3 batteries. Normally they come with like 1 or 2, but still.
You know, I don't think we need to continue the video any further. These are really the main arguments he makes, and I'll link the video in the description below in case you want to watch the whole thing. Let's talk about why lasers are just retarded, stupid, dumb. They're useless in daytime conditions. The dots are completely washed out by sunlight. You're not using them for jack shit. So already, off the board, any sort of daylight self-defense conditions, out the window, it's useless. Red dot, still useful, by the way. Now, some people will say that, oh, well, how many people really run the red dots, you know, with daytime visible brightness settings? Like, you should be. You should be with any red dot, but quick side tangent. This is why I advocate for Trijicon red dots, because they have an auto brightness adjustment. That way I can have it on one setting and it'll automatically adjust for indoor and outdoor conditions. Nighttime, daytime conditions, it'll never be washed out. That's something I really appreciate about the RMR and the SRO. So lasers are washed out by sunlight, totally useless during the daytime, but I would argue they do more harm than good really in any defensive circumstance. And the reason is, if you are already on target perfectly, if all the lighting conditions are perfect, you can probably see it in the dark. That's if you're on target. Let's go over what happens if you are slightly off target and how the experience is when you're trying to adjust your aim. Now here's the problem. Shooting from the hip
Hipfire Bitch!
with a pistol mounted laser is an inherently off-axis way to aim. Now why is that an issue? If you aren't perfectly on the target, you're not going to see the dot at all if it's slightly to one side of that target, because the target is going to occlude the dot. This makes it so that there's a slow reaction time from you as the shooter, because you don't know if you need to adjust your aim left, right, up, down. That dot is nowhere to be seen. It's even worse in an outdoor environment where the next object behind the target could be miles. Picking up that dot is just not a reliable approach. That's gonna slow you down way more than just aiming down the sight and using it then and there. All right, we've got our buddy Goku here because he's canonically bulletproof. I don't have a pistol laser on hand because I've used them in the past and, you know, like I said, they're dumb. So I don't have one on hand right now, but I've got a cheap Chinese trash Samo Gear Engol that we've been testing on this SIG MCX Virtus. So we'll use that as a stand-in because it'll get the job done just fine for demonstrating why visible lasers are stupid. And this is an IR laser, but I've got it on the visible laser setting. All right, so we've got the laser pointed at Goku. Once again, he's in no danger because he's bulletproof and this firearm is also unloaded and perfectly safe. So, you know, you don't really see any issue there, but what happens when we bring the laser just slightly off axis? Oh, and the laser disappears. From your perspective, when you are aiming from the hip, this is a very realistic scenario where you're aiming slightly off target, the laser is then pointing behind the target, but you have no visual contact with the dot. This makes it so you have no idea how to adjust your aim to get that dot on target. People will say, oh, we'll get lots of training, get lots of training. Well, you know, if you're gonna go with the training argument, well then just train how to point shoot without a laser and train how to aim down your sights quickly and effectively. That doesn't really hold up as an argument. So we will do that again, this time in this direction. How about, if for a lefty, this is more likely, being off axis to the left. If I keep going, you know, you see that dot then continue behind him. But there's a moment where it's occluded. And these are really ideal lighting conditions where it's relatively low light conditions. The dot is nice and bright. This is going to be a much brighter dot than a lot of those pistol lasers, by the way, so this is a lot easier to pick up. But most pistol lasers aren't going to be visible at all outside of ideal low light conditions. And that's something you have to keep in mind. It's just not a reliable tool that you can count on when your life is in danger. So if you must point shoot, train to point shoot without a laser. Don't rely on it. Just understand how to point shoot accurately and effectively. I know a lot of ranges don't allow that. Try and get to an outdoor range that might be more relaxed about that sort of thing. Always be safe. Practice all the rules of gun safety when you do it. But it's something worth training with because there's a possibility you'll have to point shoot from a very close quarters distance. But if there's time and there's some distance between you and the target, use your iron sights, use your red dot. It's not that hard, guys. Now, obviously, being a night vision guy, we are big fans of infrared lasers on this channel. Nobody's advocating against the use of infrared lasers for night vision use. We're purely talking about visible lasers today. But let me mention a couple of use cases where weapon-mounted visible lasers are still useful. Number one is when a SWAT team officer would be carrying a ballistic shield and needs to aim around the ballistic shield. He can't really use his sights at that point. Visible laser might be the only option. That's a realistic world use case, but it's really only applicable to law enforcement, right? The other use case I can think of is when law enforcement have deployed CS gas and they're wearing a gas mask. That could be a rifle, that could be a shotgun, that they can't get a proper cheek weld because of the gas mask. The weapon mounted laser gives them some ability to have accurate aim, even though they can't get a proper cheek weld. But once again, that's really only applicable to law enforcement, isn't it? There's just not a good use case for a self-defense situation by a regular person to have a weapon mounted laser. Now, if you have a laser light combo like from Streamlight, I'm not gonna harp on that, especially if it's a different color than when you're running say a red dot and maybe you run a green laser on a TLR light combo. I'm not gonna hate on that. I mean, you know, more options, more options. Get training with it. Definitely train to use it effectively, but acting like nobody should be running lights or red dots on an everyday carry gun and we should all be running lasers. I mean, this is just crazy stuff. We went through this whole thing 10, 15 years ago with pistol mounted lasers, and there's a reason it was a fad and it disappeared. It's not just because marketing won over. It's because people realized that the lasers were the marketing gimmick all along. That's why you don't really see many people using them. Now, real quick before we go, I gotta talk about some of the comments and this idea that lasers on a defensive pistol have this intimidation factor that will scare the bad guys out of doing anything to you. I got news for you, all right? If they're not scared out of mugging you or whatever they're gonna do to you by you drawing a loaded pistol, a loaded firearm, I don't know that a laser's gonna help, buddy. I mean, like, that person must be crazy. Another thing to consider is you really shouldn't be drawing your weapon unless you are certain that your life is in danger and you're ready to shoot. I think a lot of these people have this Hollywood syndrome where they think that pointing a laser at somebody is like this badass moment that's gonna make them rethink their whole life. So yeah, pointing a laser and expecting that to be the thing that pushes up people over the edge into not trying to kill you, it's just not a reliable strategy. You know, that's gonna wrap it up, guys. You know, this is Brass Lab. I appreciate you guys watching. Now argue in the comments and help my engagement numbers, please. Like and subscribe. Take care.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Oh, my nuggies!